All right, we are live, I think. So looks like my microphone's responding this time. Hopefully everything works this time. We don't have any glitches or any other weird stuff like we've had in the past on some of these live streams. Thank you all for joining me so far. Let's see, we got 16 people here and more coming in every second. So hopefully everyone's been having a good Wednesday here. It's been monsooning like crazy here in Pittsburgh. And so hopefully we also don't have any internet issues, but I think the rain subsided, so we should be good. Fingers crossed on that. But yeah, so welcome to another monthly live stream. Like all the other ones, just gonna kind of hang out, talk cars, answer your questions, all that kind of stuff. As usual, all the super chat questions are going to be the ones that will take priority. Otherwise, I'll try and answer as many questions as I can here. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job of answering everyone's questions in the past few months here. So hopefully we can get to everyone that we can get to here. And so, yeah, I think hopefully everyone's hearing me, everything's good. And yeah, if there's any issues, let me know. But all righty. First, we have Brandon here. He asked the first question. He said, if I had to choose between the Wrangler, Forerunner, and Bronco, where would my $40,000 go? Well, let me know in the chat here what one you guys would pick. Personally, it'd be a tough toss-up because I'm not into any of those vehicles. I'm not into off-road stuff, as most of you know. So I probably would pick the Bronco just because that's the new hot thing at the moment. And I'm kind of smitten by it because it is really cool looking and it's new and fresh. If it were to be something that I would keep for a long time, Forerunner, because it's the most reliable. I don't think there's any world where I would buy a Wrangler personally, especially now that the Bronco's around. I think if I wanted something that dedicated to off-roading, I would go for the Bronco. But Wranglers are still fine. It's just not my cup of tea. So Tu Chang has the first super chat here. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, baby Mustang. So he's actually sent me in some spy videos that I'll be showing here for this weekly update. And so I don't know what it was. He thinks it might be a Ford. It's a large SUV, and you'll see in the weekly update. It was a large SUV, but I don't think there's anything new in Ford's lineup that's coming. They already have the Explorer out. We already have the Expedition, and it wasn't large enough to be an Excursion or anything like that. So I don't think it was a Ford, but that's what he thought. I mean, to me, it looked kind of like it was like a new Nissan Pathfinder, something like that running around. Again, I can't insert the video or the pictures here in the live stream, but you'll have to take my word for it and definitely tune into the weekly update and let me know what you think it is here on Friday. But yeah, thank you again for the super chat. I always appreciate your support in the live streams. Other questions here. I know there's some people talking about the new Z, the new S-Class. We'll, I'm sure, get to all that here. But yeah, that seems like the next one here is thoughts on the Z Proto. So we'll have to wait and see. The reveal is September 16th. And I don't know how many of you follow me on Twitter, but I just retweeted. Someone posted another new early teaser of the back end of the 400Z for the first time. And it was a random small little place that does some like spy shots and things like that in France. And so anyway, I shared that on Twitter. And so if you're on Twitter, definitely let me know what you think of that. But it really has this 300ZX inspired taillights, and it's just a sketch. It's not like a picture or anything, but it kind of gives us a hint of what to expect from the back end, because so far we haven't seen anything from the back end. And it's very promising. I'm really actually excited about the Z. I know, I might not be crazy about the engine. It was powerful in the Q60. I personally like naturally aspirated stuff. I'm a little more excited, I think, for the new BRZ coming next year. But, I think the Z has a lot of potential. And if they did a convertible version, it would be kind of tempting to have as, a third kind of weekend car or something like that. But yeah, so I'm excited. I'm really glad that they're going to be showing it so soon, because there was that report like a week ago being like, oh yeah, the new Z is not coming until 2023. And I know that this is a Z Proto, they're calling it. So it's a prototype, but I don't think it's some wild concept car. I think it's probably going to be, one of those like very thinly disguised prototypes, just because they're not totally ready to commit on the mirrors or the wheels yet. So those things might be a little bit out there, but otherwise, it seems like it'd be something that'd be pretty production ready. I mean, because someone even tweeted today and was like thinking it, might take a while. But I mean, if you think about it, if the rumors are correct, It's 370Z platform. You have a Q60 motor. You have the manual from the 370 that's operated for the extra power, I think. You have an automatic that's either out of the Q60 or it'll use some other type of automatic, the 9-speed from Nissan or something. I don't know. But either way, it's not like it's a, clean slate, totally from the ground up, brand new car that they have to reinvent the wheel for everything. Like it's really just like, I don't know, it might be more extensive than this, but I'm envisioning someone doing a SEMA build for a 370Z, swapping the engine for a Q60 motor, swapping in an interior out of a Sentra and giving it new body panels, calling it a day. And honestly, if that's all they did, I think there'd still be people that'd be happy enough with that. I think it'll be more comprehensive than that, but I don't think it's going to be hard. They don't have to, invent a new engine. They don't have to do all these crazy things. So I don't think we're going to have to wait another 3 years for the Z. I think that report's crazy. I could be wrong, but I think that might just be, trying to drive some clicks and get people all shocked by having to wait 3 more years for the Z. I don't think Nissan would be showing a prototype and then making people wait 3 more years. The hype would surely die off at that point. But they've done it in the past, so I guess anything's possible. Anyway, so we have another question here saying, what's a feature you want in a car? There's lots of features that I love in cars. Luxury features are what I'm excited about usually. So I love a really good stereo, love, like heated and cooled seats, massaging seats are always fun. Those types of high-end features are pretty cool, which, by the way, the new S-Class is loaded with them. I'll be talking about that in this week's update as well. The new S-Class is very impressive from everything I've read and seen. It's going to be crazy. I didn't think Mercedes could really outdo themselves, and then they kind of went and outdid themselves again, and I'm kind of impressed. So yeah, that's some of my features. Joseph says, new Stinger or used LC500? I would go used LC500 if you don't care about practicality. But I see we do have another super chat, so I'm going to get to that here. Actually, 2. Oh, wow, multiple. I kind of missed. I don't know. They all came in all at once. So first, thank you, Anthony, for the super sticker. I really appreciate that. Fist bump to you as well. Thanks so much again for that. Luco says, you should trade your wife's C-Class for the GV80. Well, she'll have to check out the GV80 and see how much she enjoys it. I'm hoping to get one of those this fall as a press vehicle, and we will see, what her thoughts are on that. But she really loves the Mercedes, so I think we'll probably be sticking with that. And we're also going to be hopefully filming a review on her car here relatively soon. I know it's something everyone's been asking for a while, so I do think we're going to try and get to that here sometime very soon. And it will be a video where she finally drives, because I know everyone wants to see her driving cars. She's not authorized to drive the press vehicle, so that's why she never drives in any of the reviews. But obviously for her car, she will be doing all the driving and doing a lot more of that video, which I think a lot of you guys will enjoy. But Italian Ice 678, thank you so much for the generous super chat. He says, hi, Matt, hope you and your wife are well. We're doing great. Just enjoying the end of summer here. It's been not as an action-packed summer as usual, especially for me, not as many road trips or anything, but it's been a good time so far. So we have some other people talking about the Z and stuff. All kinds of questions. It's so great to see so many of you hanging out here. Got people from Texas. This is great. All right. So Gregory says, is the Corolla Cross coming to America? I believe it is. They haven't really revealed it yet, which I'm not sure why, because we've already seen, what it looks like in Europe, but I'm pretty sure it's coming and should be coming fairly soon. So I'm not sure why they haven't revealed anything just yet, but I'm sure they will pretty soon. All right, and then we have Mystical Gamers asking thoughts on the 2021 Kia Telluride Nightfall Edition. I think it's just kind of fitting in with the trend that all the manufacturers are going with these days of giving a trim with all the blacked out mirrors and wheels and badges and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people really like that kind of look, and so I'm glad they're giving people the option. And it's good to keep the Telluride fresh. Also, Luco, thank you for another super chat. He says, how long do you and your wife typically keep vehicles for on average? So my wife leases her Mercedes because I don't have faith in any of the German companies beyond the lease period. I used to work at a BMW, Audi, and Porsche dealer. I worked at a used car dealership that sold off-lease German vehicles. And the amount of issues that all those cars, had to have fixed and stuff, and even stuff that wasn't out of lease. But even especially once you get past that 3-year period, sometimes they're good to like 5 years old. And then, oh man, it's you better have your wallet ready because it's not good. So I refuse to ever buy a German vehicle that I'm planning on keeping for more than 3 years. And so it doesn't make sense to buy them. So for her car, we lease that. And then the Mustang, that one's a keeper. The Bullet's a keeper. And so for me in the past, it's been, I keep a car, the first car I kept, my first car was a hand-me-down, but my actual first car that I bought, I kept 5 years. The BRZ I kept for about 3 or 2.5, something like that. The Mini I kept for 6 months because it fell apart immediately. And then, the EcoBoost was about 2 years. The GT was, between the two GTs, the one getting crushed and then the other one, kept those, for, about 2 years or so there, and then moved on to the Bullet. But yeah, so I'm not really one of those people that swaps cars at a certain interval or has a general, timeline. It just comes down to whenever we feel like changing. But for her, it'll definitely be every 3 years. She'll get a new lease. Most likely is the plan for that, unless we decide not to lease in the future and go with another brand or something. Colorful Sweater says Honda Civic Sport for a first manual. Yeah, those would be great. The only thing that's going to be a little tricky is the rev hang. That makes it hard to be smooth. But if you're trying to learn on a car with a modern manual with rev hang, don't feel bad. It is not your fault that you're not smooth. I have trouble being smooth in cars with rev hang because it's just, I'm used to, a lightweight flywheel that drops down like normal. And with all these newer vehicles, I guess they say they do it for emissions. They, have it so the revs drop a lot slower. And it makes it so hard to be smooth with some of these new manuals. Some of them are better, like the Type R is fantastic. It doesn't have rev hang. Neither did like the Cayman GT4 I just reviewed. So some of the cars where they don't care about fuel economy, it's fine. But the ones that are trying to be fuel efficient, like the Corolla hatch and stuff has a little bit of that rev hang. It makes it tricky. But if you can get beyond that, you're good. And don't let that discourage you. And I commend you for trying to learn a manual. Not very many people are these days, and so I respect that a lot. Pedification, thank you so much for the super chat. He said, what's your favorite flavor of LaCroix and why is it Pamplemousse? Okay, seriously, just wanted to tip you for the great G70 review. Well, thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hopefully you're still enjoying your G70. They're fantastic cars, and actually I'll be kind of referring to the G70 here because I'm filming right now this week. I have a Cadillac CT5V, and that's a little more expensive than the G70, but there's some interesting similarities that I wasn't expecting between the two, and I'll be comparing them. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I'm still very much impressed with the G70. It's a very solid car, and so yeah, thanks. As far as the favorite flavor of LaCroix, that's a tongue twister. I like a bunch of them. If you're actually wondering, it's like lime, the peach pear one. Pamplemousse is really good. Orange. There's a bunch of them that I enjoy. Broly, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, Matt, will Mustangs discontinue manual transmissions? I don't think they will for a long time. The main reason being that there's a lot of demand for it. If, people quit buying them, then maybe it could go away in the future. But as of right now, I thought I remember hearing that it was close to 50% of Mustangs are still manual. So as long as it stays around there, it should be around for a good long time. I'm guessing, maybe once it goes fully electric in 10 years or whenever that ends up happening, maybe that'll be when it'll get rid of it. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, so I hope it is a long time away. But I already got my perfect Mustang. I'll probably keep forever. And so, yeah, so not too worried about that anytime soon, though. Man, I'm having all kinds of phlegm tonight. Sorry about that. So Chi H says CX30 or CX5. I would go CX5 because the price is so close. You're better off just getting a little bit more space in the CX5, even though the interior is a little nicer in the CX30. If you watch last week's update, you'll see, they have the new larger screen of the CX5 for 2021. And so at that point, you have, maybe the materials are a little nicer than the CX30, but you're better off with the CX5 for very little, jump in price. It's well worth it for the CX5. All right. We have Anthony saying, what are your thoughts on the updated Alfa Romeo Stelvio/Giulia? I've been dying to get into one. I keep asking FCA for one to review of either one of those, just because I want to try out the new infotainment system and just because I want to drive a Giulia for a week again, because it was a lot of fun the last time. And that video actually has done really well. So that's another reason why I want to film another one. But yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it seems like they made some nice improvements to the inside. And it's really just getting over the hurdle of people being scared about the reliability, which isn't really that bad. If you research on like the Alpha forums, there's actually very few people that have issues with them. They seem to be pretty solid. It's just unfortunate that some of the high profile Alphas, like the one that Car and Driver had for their long-term test, that was unreliable. That was a quadrifolio. I've heard the non-quadrifolio models are more reliable too. But yeah, I think they made some great updates, and I'm looking forward, to hopefully trying them out someday. All right, other questions here. American GTS says, question, which vehicle needs a comeback? Man, there is a whole laundry list. Mitsubishi Evo. I'm trying to think. I mean, just like even a Mitsubishi Montero, I think that would do really well for them if they brought something like that back. Suzuki Jimny, I think if they brought that to the States, that's already back. But if they brought that here, that would be awesome. Basically, all the JDM stuff from the 90s that was amazing and made those companies, as fun as they are. I think I'd love to see, a new CRX. I'd love to see another S2000. All those types of things. I'd love to see another MR2. Those types of things. And I'm hoping that maybe, like Hyundai's working on their little mid-engine sports car. I hope that motivates Toyota to maybe do a new MR2 or something. We'll have to wait and see. But there's so many good things from the 90s. And maybe it's just because I'm a 90s kid. I'm nostalgic for that stuff. But I think it would be great if all that came back. So other questions here. Someone asked if Beth's my sister. She's my wife. Someone's saying, what do you think of a used Cadillac ATS-V as a fun daily driver? They're fantastic. I've taken them around racetracks. They're super stout vehicles on the track. They're so much fun on the street. They're just fantastic all around. As long as you don't mind the smaller size, because the back seat's pretty cramped. It's not the roomiest even in the front seats. As long as you don't have any problems with the space, 100% ATS-V is fantastic. Would definitely recommend one. Melsh is asking, are you excited for the Mark 8 GTI? And what is your opinion on the new Golf R being DSG only? I think, I'm excited for the new GTI. I don't think it looks as bad. Everyone, whenever it first was revealed a few months ago, was saying how ugly it looked. And it's like, it's the same thing as like Porsche 911 owners are like, oh, the new one's hideous. Like, I don't think it looks that different, honestly. So I think it looks good to me, but I don't know. I don't like idolize the GTI, so it's not as big of a deal to me, but I think they look fantastic. I think it's going to be a great improvement. The GTIs always get better with each generation. The Golf R being DSG only, I think it makes sense for that demographic. I don't think there's a ton of people that even ordered them in manual anyway. And if there were a ton of people that ordered it in manual, then they wouldn't have quit making it. It's just like, I've kind of thrown my hands up in the air in the whole like save the manual fight, because it comes down to sales numbers. And I know that some car companies don't do the best combination for the manual. Like the G70 was only for the 4-cylinder version. And there's a lot of others that kind of do that. Mazda with the Mazda 3, it's only in the fully loaded version. That makes no sense either. So it's, I get that it's partially on the manufacturers for not offering it everywhere. But again, it's just they sell in such small numbers. They have to try and focus on whatever trim they think it'll be most successful, and that's it. But it's just the way things are going. People are too busy staring at their phones while they're driving. They don't want to be shifting, sadly. That's just what the masses do. All of us are enthusiasts. We don't care about that stuff. We'd rather shift ourselves, many of us, but it's just, unfortunately, we're the smaller demographic these days. And we have George here. Thank you so much for the super chat. I don't see a message there, but I will try and keep an eye if you have any messages. But if not, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. So we have Sean says, thoughts on future classic cars. I currently have a Mark 7.5 Golf R, and it's great, but it doesn't give me the fizz. Thinking about going back to an E92 M3. I appreciate it doesn't give you the fizz. That's a great way to put it. So future classics, E92 M3 is fantastic. The problem with those old BMWs is they are very expensive to fix. That V8 I've heard can be a little temperamental as well, and especially if you don't get it with the manual, the DSG is going to be a little iffy as well. So I would just be careful and make sure you got plenty of money to fix it if you're going that route. My neighbor has an M6, and he even just had his like transmission solenoid go out where it wasn't going into first gear and he was stuck, or it wasn't going out of first and it wasn't shifting or something, but that was like a bunch of money for him. And it's just like small little things that go wrong in those cars that get super, super expensive. So just be careful with that. Other future classics though, I don't know. There's so many that I think are going to be future classics. Basically anything like with a Lexus V8, like the GSF, that's a fantastic choice that I think will definitely be appreciated more in the future than it is right now. But yeah, there's lots of, exciting stuff that I think, and I should maybe make a list, like a video someday of like the top future classics that I think are, going to be really valuable someday. Cause I think there's a lot that are really primed for that. But Tu Chang, thank you so much for the super chat. He said, just bought a 6-cylinder Toyota Coupe. No, it's not what you think. Take a long guess. Would it be a Solara maybe? Or I'm trying to think more like if you have like I guess Camry Coupe. When did they do that? I don't know. A long time ago. Yeah, Solara is my guess. Let me know if I'm right. Luco, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, this may seem dumb, but I have a 1999 Volkswagen Passat 5-speed manual for my spare car. I'm not sure if it has rev hang. I feel I downshift smooth. Yeah, so generally old cars don't have it. And some of them will have heavier flywheels, so it just doesn't drop the revs as fast. But if you're in like if you test drive like a new Honda Civic Si, that's like one of the worst, where it's like really hangs. And I mean, you actually have to like be slow with your shifts. Like I have to be like, okay, I'm going to shift 1, 2, okay. And now I'm in second gear. Like it really doesn't want you to rush it. And, it's not like I power shifting every gear or anything. Like I don't shift that fast, but it just does not like any kind of quick shifts. So I'm pretty sure if it's that old, you probably don't have any kind of rev hang to worry about. But it's easy. Like I said, go test drive a new Civic Si and you'll see exactly what I mean. It's not the best. Well, thank you so much again for the super chat. All right, so I think I've caught up on the super chats here. Someone else is guessing Camry Coupe. So a Wheel says, what do you prefer, Euro, domestic, or JDM? It totally depends on the car. I feel like whenever I talk in generalizations, it kind of leaves out stuff and isn't, very fair. So I think it kind of depends on the segment and stuff. I think there's, some companies do one thing well, other companies do another thing well. Generally, I like JDM stuff the best, I guess, on the whole, but I love a lot of the, American stuff. Obviously, I have a Mustang. I am very impressed with the German stuff, obviously. Beth has her Mercedes. So it kind of bridges all the gaps. I've had, out of all the cars I've owned, most of them have been Japanese. So there's that, I guess. But I guess at this point, it's kind of a tie between all the Mustangs I've had. But will a V6 Mustang be a classic? I don't know if those will be a classic just because they made so many of them. And I don't think those will be too collectible. Maybe they will be, if they're just more rare, if more people scrap them and there's less remaining in 50 years or something. But I think as of right now, probably not. But yeah, other questions here. I see we got some people talking about the new Batman trailer and stuff. Yeah, that was interesting. I have very mixed feelings about the new Batman trailer myself. It's there's some parts that are good, some parts I was like, I don't know. But Devin says, I rode through Pittsburgh a while back. I love that place. Well, hopefully you enjoyed your brief little visit. I do love Pittsburgh. I've been here my whole life aside from college. It's a really great city. Lewis says, me and my wife are looking to buy a Civic Type R1. The Type Rs are fantastic. I just wish they would do a version without the huge spoiler on the back, and then it would actually be even more tempting. The spoiler is okay. It's just, I don't know. I just feel like it just really stands out a little more. I like kind of flying under the radar. That's why I love the Bullet. No spoilers, no badges. It's just low profile. I think it's great. How's Infiniti doing? Chat asks. Yeah, it's going to be a slow road for Infiniti, it seems. They're talking about how they're committed to the brand. They're going to invest more money into it. It'll be Nissan Plus, which sounds kind of terrifying, but it might be more profitable, and what they need to do to keep them afloat, we'll have to wait and see. But I hope things work out for Infiniti because they were so good just a few years ago. And it's crazy. So he said Solara. I was right. Wow. Yeah, that's that's awesome. Congrats on your new Solara. That's a vehicle that might be collectible someday because those are probably pretty rare at this point. I don't know how many people are going to want them in a long, 20, 30 years from now, but that's something that anything that's rare has a potential to be collectible. That's for sure. Barack says thoughts on the new screens in the 2020 Mercedes S-Class. And I see David says he also picked up a Type R, which is awesome. Congrats on that. But as far as the S-Class, the screens, they seem cool to me. I know it's a big departure, from previous Mercedes with the horizontal setup. But yeah, I think all the technology in the new S-Class is really cool looking. I'm really excited to try out that digital gauge 3D like setup that they say, or it looks like it's 3D, but you're not actually having to wear glasses, obviously, or anything like that. That seems really, really awesome. So I'm excited to maybe try that out someday if I ever get a S-Class press car or something. I haven't had Mercedes press cars in a long time, so we'll have to see if they ever start back up with that. But yeah, I think the S-Class seems very positive with its changes. It's going to be very impressive, and I'll be talking more about that in the weekly update. Someone else is asking about the Corolla Cross, if it's coming to the USA. I'm pretty sure it is. Someone else asked, why we haven't seen it yet. And I think, I don't know, Toyota just must be waiting for the perfect timing in their product cycle to reveal it. I'm not sure. They're still trying to get out the Venza and get out the, RAV4 Prime and all that kind of stuff. So maybe they'll wait a little bit. And I don't know if you guys heard, I'll be talking about in the weekly update too, but there's rumors that the LA Auto Show is going to be pushed to May of 2021 now. So if that's the case, then that means, forget about any car shows the rest of the year. They're all done. I mean, I guess that was a safe bet anyway, probably. But yeah, I was kind of hoping maybe things would improve in time for the LA Auto Show at the end of November, but I guess it seems like that might not be the case. So yeah, so I don't know when they're going to reveal stuff. It'll just be all online, but yeah, I think the Corolla Cross should be coming fairly soon. Kong's asking if I'm excited for the new Z. I am. They kind of started the live stream off with that. The Z is going to be great. And if you haven't seen the little sketch of the back end, I retweeted it on my Twitter today. You can go check that out. I'm excited for the new Z. It's going to be cool. A Wheel says, have you been to the New England Auto Show? I have not. I only go to the really big ones where there's actual new car reveals and stuff like that in the past. We'll see if I do them in the future, because it seemed like towards the last few auto shows I did, people didn't really watch the videos very much. So I probably aren't going to do any more auto shows in the future unless there's some reason to. But yeah, I'm probably going to skip out on most of those because I can just cover them right here from my office. Don't have to travel. Don't have to run around like a crazy person trying to film everything and then hurry up and upload before everyone else does and stuff. It's it's a very stressful thing covering an auto show. So I'm happy to just cover it from my house. Sean, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, what car companies do you think have lost their way? I would say Mitsubishi, Toyota, and Nissan. Well, I agree with Mitsubishi for sure, 100%. Nissan, I agree. I think they're starting to come back. They have kind of lost their way in the past. Toyota, I think, is fantastic. I think they've never been better, personally, between giving us a Supra that doesn't make them any money, and they have the 86, which again doesn't really make them any money, and giving enthusiasts those gifts. And I like that Akito Toyota, who actually runs the company, he actually is a race car driver. He's an enthusiast. He cares about what the few thousand of us that actually buy manual transmission cars, and he puts them into the Corolla even though no one buys it, and he offers TRD Camrys, and they really are trying hard at Toyota, and I personally respect them a ton, because this is stuff they don't need to do at all whatsoever. That's all unnecessary crap that they're just gifting us for the fun of it. And so and a huge company like Toyota, they don't, that's something that most companies run by normal CEOs would try and minimize that stuff. Look at Ford. They're trying to monetize everything. Let's, throw the Mustang badge on an SUV. Let's, make Bronco versions of everything. And let's, that's how normal CEOs work. They're like, ooh, this is profitable. Let's churn out the profit and churn out as many SUVs as we can. Get rid of the cars, get rid of all this stuff. Toyota's like, nope, we're keeping cars around. We're going to add more cars. We're going to add features to the cars, like all-wheel drive now on the Camry and the Avalon. Let's give them TRD versions. Let's do all that kind of stuff. So I really respect them for that. I think honestly, the only other company I can add right off the top of my head that kind of irks me a lot is Subaru. Subaru was the cool niche company that was doing, these quirky things, the Forester with a turbo, and they just took a lot of chances. I mean, they restyled the WRX every 2 years. It was like 2002 to 2003, bug eye, crazy. And then they had a completely different blob eye for 04 and 05. And then, well, it's 06, time for a new design. And they changed that again for 06 and 07. And then what do you have in 08? Another new one. And now here we are, 5 years since there's been any meaningful changes to the WRX. And, we're still a year away from getting a new WRX. We're 2 years away from getting a new STI if the leaked timeline is true. And what are they churning out? Massive SUVs, uninspiring crossovers that they take away the turbo engine. In the Forester now it's just naturally aspirated. They are adding the XT back to the Outback and stuff, but it's not really performance oriented, And so, they had such a strong enthusiast base, and they still have it with the WRX, and they're still making the BRZ, which again is a gift that doesn't make them any money. And so they aren't terrible. I just wish that they were quirky still. Subaru's not quirky anymore. They used to be really unique and different. And, maybe part of it's because a little bit of them was bought out by Toyota, but it's like Toyota excites me more than Subaru does these days. So yeah, that's kind of my only other one. I think Mazda too, they're very impressive with all the luxury stuff now, but I don't like them seeing them, turn their back on the Mazda Speed fans and stuff. But again, they have the Miata, so they're also not bad in my book. But yeah, like Petey's saying, bring back the Baja for Subaru. I agree 100%. And that would sell so well with everyone loving trucks these days. And they could do something really quirky with it, put like rear, bed mounted seats like they did on the Brat and stuff. Like, just take a little bit of leap of fun, I don't know. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox with Subaru. but anyway, yeah, so that's my only other thing. But thank you again for the super chat. All right, so other questions, thoughts on the 2021 Bronco. I'm really impressed by it. I talked about it a lot in the weekly update whenever it came out a few weeks ago. I think for people who love off-roading stuff, it's great that there's finally real competition for the Wrangler. So that'll drive, Jeep to make more innovations with the Wrangler and stuff. Competition's always good. So I'm, glad to see the Bronco coming. Prince, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, will GM put a Batwing engine in the new Z? In a new Z. So I'm guessing you're meaning the Blackwing engine. Yeah. So the Blackwing engine is going to be in the new Vs. That's going to be in, so like I have the CT5V right now, but there's going to be the V Blackwing. And so that's going to have the V8 engine, but it's the old one from the CTSV. I believe the Blackwing engine, the actual, whatever it was, a 4.4 liter twin turbo or something, I don't think they're going to do anything with that. I mean, yeah, there were rumors it was going to be in the new Z06. I don't know if that's going to happen now because there's, that's just going to be like the C8R motor. And then as far as like a ZL1 or something, that'll probably do something more potent than the Blackwing engine. So I think that motor's just going to die, which is kind of a shame. But GM's done that kind of in the past as well, where they come up with great engines or promising engines, I guess, and then doesn't really go anywhere. But yeah, so I think that's, everything that I've heard at least so far. We'll have to see what they end up doing. Griffin, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, is the 2019 Miata refresh worth the additional $4,000 to $5,000 on the used market compared to a 2016? Trying to decide if I should wait a bit or get a 16 now. Well, if your finances right now are kind of limiting you onto the 16, I do think people should live in the moment, especially these days. We just saw this year how things can change so fast. And I've thought that a lot, especially after having a tree fall on me and nearly bash my head in and stuff. Live in the moment. If you want a Miata, get a Miata now. Get whatever Miata you can afford now. You can always upgrade to a 19 if you're looking for that down the road. But I'm a firm believer in enjoy things while you can. And obviously you have to be responsible and can't take that, too crazy. But as much as you possibly can, live in the moment. And I would get the Miata now if you want. Now, if you can stretch the extra $4,000 to $5,000, I personally think that it is probably worth that much extra money, because it's just, I thought that the Miata, the older ones, were just they didn't have quite as much personality with the engine as I wanted them to. That was totally fixed with the 19, and I wholeheartedly, if I were to get a Miata, I probably would hold out for a 19. Just because they're just so good with that engine. It's just the extra power is really nice to have too. But my friend Jason from Engineering Explained, I tried to talk him into the 2019, and he instead went for the 2016 instead because I think as far as mods go, the 16s, they have a motor that everyone understands. There's no surprises there. You know how reliable it's going to be. There's more aftermarket support for it, and that's kind of why he went with that. So he's in camp 16 as well, so you have some support there. And like I said, truly, I would live in the moment. They're fantastic cars either way. You can always upgrade. So that's my thoughts on that. Hopefully that helps. MFMF 100, thank you so much for the super chat. He says maybe they should make the Blackwing a crate motor, see what people can do with it. Yeah, that would be cool. I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess with crate motors, you don't have to like certify it for emissions or anything like that. So yeah, that would be a cool idea. They should do that. Maybe someone at GM will, try and put it out there, and that would be cool because yeah, it sounded like it was promising, but maybe it's complicated or something. We'll have to see. Jorge, thank you so much for another super chat. He says about the G70, the manual, especially the clutch, was a downgrade from my 2014 Mazda 6 manual in terms of engagement, in my opinion. I say save the good manuals. Got a minivan and about to get a 2021 MX-5. Well, that's awesome. Congrats on the upcoming MX-5. I'm glad to see people supporting those. And yeah, I agree. It's interesting. I've never driven a G70 manual, so I can't weigh in on that. But I have heard some people saying it's not amazing. And so, yeah, I see, I want to save the good manuals, but I also think that just having the involvement, even if it's not the best manual, I would still take a crappy manual over a crappy automatic. Like if it's a really, really good automatic, then okay, fine. Like in the Supra, I'm not mad it doesn't have a manual because the Supra, it just bangs off the shift so fast with the ZF8 speed. That transmission is so good that I don't miss it. But if it's a car that's not especially super fast, you're not going for 0 to 60 times and stuff, I still, a lot of the manuals, even just modern manuals now, are just so much better than a lot of the ones from 10 years ago, even with just how notchy they are and just how easy they are to drive and stuff. But I agree. It's, it's just at this point, I'm just happy if they save any manuals, though, honestly. Sean, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, what music do you play to test out a car's audio system? I listen to a bunch of stuff just to see, what the strengths are of the audio system. So I'll listen to some bass heavy stuff. I always make sure that I try and listen to like really new music as far as stuff that's a really high, sample rate, and, make sure that I don't use lossless music because I still just buy my music on iTunes like it's 2008. But I try and always get, really high quality stuff. I do a wired in source, but so I'll listen to, just some modern, pop, hip hop type stuff to try and test out a bass and see how clean that is. But my favorite music to test out a stereo system is any kind of like musical score for like a movie or something, like a soundtrack. I have several, like movie soundtracks that are really like my favorite, that whenever I really want to, see how impressive a stereo is, I play those. And like the Back to the Future theme song, I'll play that because that has like really very impressive instrumentals, but then it also has, really big trumpets, and it's just, there's so much going on. And so from an instrumental standpoint, I can really, in crappier stereo systems, I can't pick out the instruments quite as well. Whereas some of the really good stuff, like the newest Mazda Bose system, or any of the Bose Performance Series, like even what GM has in the new Corvette and stuff, as well as like the CT6 with its Bose Panorama system. Like in those, like I can pick out like, okay, the dude with the like cymbals is over there and the guy with the trumpets over there. And like, it's really, really impressive. So I really love movie soundtracks and listening to those, which might be kind of weird, but so that's something that's really good for testing out audio, in my opinion, especially if it's a movie that I've seen in theaters and remember what it was like with that. And then I play it on a car. It's kind of cool to see, how it sounds in that. But Kevin, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hi, Matt. How would you compare GT350R versus GT4? They're actually fairly similar in the way that you drive them, obviously, since they're both high redline, low torque engines. But I would say the GT350 is like a GT4 turned up to like 12, if that makes sense. It's like, I honestly think I prefer it better. Now, the GT4 is amazing, and you have smaller dimensions. So, carving up back roads is a little bit more, it's a little more precise in the GT4 than it is in the GT350, because the GT350 handles so well, but it is still a large car. You have a long hood still and everything. So you're still, moving it, and it's a bunch of weight, even though you are, really flat with the handling. So I think GT4 is still the king for handling, but I think overall experience, as long as you don't mind the extra size, the engine in the GT350 still feels a little more special to me. It just sounds crazier, and it's a very special car. I just wish that engine in the GT350 was a little bit more reliable. I see so many horror stories about those engines blowing up that it just like, I don't think I would take a GT350 for half the price of what they're going for right now, just because I'd be terrified of blowing up the engine every time I took the red line, which is sad. And I know there's lots of them that are reliable, but personally, I'm done with unreliable cars, and so I wouldn't go for a GT350 personally. Jason, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, "Hey Matt, agree Subaru is losing their way. Do you feel better about FCA products with Dodge getting the JD Power Award for Initial Quality 2019?" Yeah, I think hopefully that will silence all the people that every time I do an FCA review, they're like, "Oh, but it's FCA, it's junk, it's gonna fall apart, it's crappy, it's from Italy," and all this stuff. Like, Dodge has really solid stuff for what they're doing. Doing nearly 800 horsepower out of engines, and they're reliable. Like, anyone who's been around the performance car scene before the insanity of the past 10 years knows any engine that's 700 horsepower, 800 horsepower, that's anything, none of them have been reliable in the past. Doing a 700 horsepower, you name it, has always been like, well, yeah, good luck, it's going to blow up someday. And with the Hellcats and stuff, they're doing it all day long on, crappy gas in rough environments, and they're doing it, flawlessly. Look at the Ram T-Rex putting out 700 horsepower and still sucking in air through sand dunes, and while it's fording water and all this kind of stuff. I think FCA is doing fantastic. And even just the old-fashioned mindset of, this is what Toyota does. Let's make sure our innovations are a little bit slower, play it really safe, don't have new engines all the time, stick to traditional technology, and that's how you make a reliable car. What has Dodge been doing? The same infotainment system the past 5 years, but with speed improvements. Same engines forever. You're on an old platform. You're using ZF transmissions that everyone's been using for years and years in dozens of different brands. It's a recipe for a really reliable car, and I'm glad that now JD Power is saying that. I think Consumer Reports, if I remember correctly, just ranked the Charger as one of their reliable picks this past year, I think. And they're all so pretty well done. I think Dodge, especially since they do the old V8s more so than like Jeep does or something like that. I think Dodge is probably one of the more reliable FCA brands. But yeah, I think that Dodge is doing fantastic right now. Tu Chang, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, "Off topic, will we ever see you in another film? Also, can we agree that a Matt Moran film review would be funny? Hey guys, Matt Moran here, and this, of course, is the new Batman movie." Yeah, that would be funny. My problem is I don't have a degree in film or something, so I'm sure that my critiques would not be, what's the word? Intelligent enough, I guess, because my sister's fiance, he's very into movies, and he's one of these people that dissects every little aspect and can judge, how the plot is and stuff. Whereas with me, I'm like, if I enjoyed the ending, if I enjoyed the movie, it makes me happy, I'm easy to please, I'm good. I don't need to sit there and dissect it. I think, I dissect cars so much that I can't do that for everything in life, because then it just kind of removes all enjoyment out of anything. I just have to be like, oh, that was a cool movie. And, not be like, oh yeah, but the comics are saying this and it was the wrong thing and blah. I'm like, I'm not very good at reviewing films probably. But as far as being in a film, I would love to someday be an extra in some more movies. That is something that I've been dying to get back to. Obviously that slowed down this year with, film shoots being shut down and everything, but hopefully someday I will find the time to get back onto a movie set and just be an extra again. It's the biggest rush outside of it doing an acceleration down a back road. That is the biggest rush for me, is being on a movie set. It's fantastic. So Chauncey Sauce, thank you so much for the very generous super sticker. I really appreciate that. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. I'll try and answer them here if I see your messages pop up. But thank you so much for the generous super chat. I really appreciate that. Hella Gamer, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, is a 2020 manual V6 Camaro RS with the 1LE package a good weekend twisties car? Would you recommend a used Asian brand instead? Chevy reliability issues. So I don't know if you saw, I did a 1LE V6 Camaro 2019, not a 2020, but pretty much the same thing. And as far as a good weekend twisties car, I think it would be a great car. I mean, I think the Camaro is still so underrated with its handling. It is such a good handling car. As long as you can get past the visibility not being quite as good, I think that V6 engine is fairly reliable as well. I don't know if it's the best out there. I'm sure some of the Asian brands would be a little bit better. It just depends on what you value in a weekend car. Because I think, if you don't need a ton of straight line power, then you could go for something like a BRZ or an 86. Those are fantastic, especially on a back road. 370Z is also pretty good as long as you don't mind the old interior. That's a lot of fun. You can also get that with a great V6 exhaust note, and the Nismo version, like I reviewed a couple years ago, is even a little bit sharper on corners and is another really fun pick if you want something a little bit more reliable. But I think the Camaro is a great choice. And if you haven't watched that 2019 Camaro review, definitely check that out for more of my thoughts on that. Thank you again for the super chat. James Parker Jr., thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, Matt, hope all is well. Do you have a favorite Batmobile? I vote for the Tumbler from the Nolan trilogy. I still remember when you filmed them years ago. Yeah, that video just passed like 6 million views. It's still my top rated or my top viewed video of all time was all the tumblers from The Dark Knight Rises rolling down the street. That was pretty crazy to witness. But yeah, I think the Tumbler is also my favorite Batmobile. I still really I think my second favorite would be the one from the Adam West, TV series and movies. That's also just, legendary. But yeah, I'd say, I think it's for me, growing up, I did also really enjoy the animated series, and that Batmobile was really cool. But I think the Tumbler is still I think just the Christopher Nolan Batman movies in general, in my mind, I mean, we'll have to see how this new one is again, but that might be like the pinnacle for me. Like it was just such an amazing 3-movie series, in my opinion. I love them. So I think for that reason, the Tumbler is my favorite Batmobile. Kevin, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, what would be your suggestions on enthusiast daily car under 100,000? Man, under 100,000, you got a lot of fun picks. It also depends if you want used or new. But daily enthusiast, I would say the LC500 is one of the first ones that comes to mind. That would be one of the top picks because it is so comfortable and yet still so cool. Other stuff, let me see, like under 100 grand. Jagger F-Type, I think, is another really solid, fun pick, especially if you can find, if you want a used one, the 2015 F-Type, R with rear-wheel drive, really bonkers in that coupe, and they just look so good still. Other stuff, there's so many. I mean, if you're into mid-engine stuff for a daily driver, the C8 Corvette is still a fantastic choice. If you follow me on Instagram, I just spent a week with a C8 Corvette, and I'll be posting that video next week. Not the best daily driver, but totally could be daily driven and is just such a fantastic car as well. GT500 would be a really fun daily driver too, just because, boatloads of power. But if you go for the non-track pack version, you still have a very comfortable car. And I love daily driving my Mustang whenever I, actually don't have press cars. It's a blast to daily drive. So that would be another pick. But yeah, there's so many other good ones. I'm just trying to think of stuff off the top of my head, but I would say those are probably my top picks that I can think of right away. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. And if you want to follow up, I'll try and look for your comments here in the chat here. If you have used versus new or any preferences. I also, by the way, any of you who are asking about car advice, if you are searching for a car to buy, I always answer people on my Facebook fan page. If you message me on there, I always get back to people on there, and I can kind of go more in depth as far as, do you need 2 doors or 4, all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, what brands do you like, and can really hone in on exactly what it is, that would be a good recommendation. If you're curious to hear, what I think about something more specifically, I'm always happy to answer people's questions there. All right, Cameron Cruz, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, thoughts on the LT1 C4 Corvettes. So yeah, I reviewed one that was an 86. I believe that's the C4s, right? Yeah, and I Can't remember if that one had an LT1 or not. I think it did, but I could be wrong. But I think that's a car that's starting to kind of appreciate. I think it kind of reached the bottom of its depreciation curve, and now they're starting to come back up and being cool again, as everything from the 80s and 90s is starting to come back up. And so I think they're really cool. But yeah, if you haven't seen my 86 Corvette video, I had some fun editing that one to make it look kind of retro and stuff. That was a fun one. It's a very interesting experience. Jorge says the Jagger is always the answer for me. Yeah, I love the F-Type. It's still one of my favorite reviews I've ever done. All the F-Types. I did, the convertible base V6 was fantastic. The V8, Coupe was fantastic. I've never done an SVR, but I'm sure those are amazing as well. But yeah, Theo's asking, have you ever driven a French car, Peugeot, Citroen, etc.? I have not driven one. I have ridden in them. Basically just whenever I was riding in Ubers in the UK and in France, especially the UK, I definitely rode in a Citroen as a C4, I think. I'm not the greatest with my French car trivia, but and then the Peugeot Cactus, I believe I rode in last year. I've ridden in the backseat of a few things like that, but never have driven one. But they always kind of seem intriguing to me, probably because it's just like the forbidden fruit we don't have here in the States. So I, it always just is like, wow, they're doing that kind of differently. And it's just kind of, just trying to be in something different is kind of exciting, especially for me, since I've been in so many cars. Whenever I sit in something that's actually new and different, I've never seen before, it's like, wow, there's a lot to take in here. And it's like, I want to just analyze everything. And Uber drivers over there were probably like, why is this dude so interested in my, Cactus or whatever? But it was a lot of fun. Supra, a good daily. That is another good daily driver, as long as you don't mind not having a ton of space. That's a good one. The hatch is nice. So you have that for, cargo space, just not a lot of places to put things and stuff in the Supra. Brianna says Aston Martin. Yeah, if you can get a, used Aston Martin under 100,000, if you're okay with something used, that would be a great choice as well. Thank you again for the super chat, Kevin. He says, so 4 doors under 100,000 new. I like Civic Type R, Model 3, and your suggestions. Well, yeah, I mean, at that price point, you can buy 2 of each, maybe almost 3. But I think Model 3 is a very good car. Even as an enthusiast, I think Jason Camisa on Instagram keeps praising, the new Tesla stuff, because it is really good. And I love the Model 3 that I reviewed last year, Sophion's from Midland Reviews. That was a blast, and they are so fast. If you don't do a lot of road trips, Model 3 is a very solid car. So 4 doors, I'm trying to think of some other stuff, like an Audi RS7. Those are a little more expensive maybe. But yeah, and then like the Audi RS6, that's a little over, but that would be a sweet daily driver with the wagon. Those would be awesome. Other 4-door stuff, like a CTSV, those are fantastic, but they quit making those, so you probably won't be able to find a new one unless there's one sitting around on lots. But something like that's really cool. And I really love the Audi RS5. That's another very good daily driver. You have like massaging seats and stuff, but then it's as fast as like a GTR almost, and it's really impressive. GTR is also another good choice if you want something and you don't mind not having a luxurious interior. I think a GTR is so good. You want 4 doors, I see, but at least with a GTR, you have a back seat, so you have some capability there, and it's all-wheel drive. So if you happen to live in a snowy state, you can drive it all year round. But yeah, RS5 might be, the RS5 Sportback is the one that you would be looking at. But I think that would be a really solid choice too. The M5, you can get one of those under 100 now. I don't know if you can. That car was mind blowing as well, insanely fast. That's another really solid choice. But yeah, so let me see here. Other questions we have. Martin says, hey, Matt, Jagger F-Type V6S versus Porsche 718 Boxster S. Which one would you recommend? If you're talking about the 4-cylinder Boxster, I 100% would take the F-Type just for the better V6 engine. As far as the 4-liter new Boxster, those I haven't driven, so it's hard to say. But that would probably be the better handler between that and the F-Type, because, the mid-engine setup in the Boxster is just so much more neutral and stuff. But personally, I would go for the F-Type. I would probably recommend everyone else go for the Boxster just because they'll probably be maybe a little bit more reliable and probably the better handler. But what can I say? Maybe I'm a little bit biased with the F-Type. They're just so good sounding. They're just so good looking as well. All right. Let me see here. Sean C. Sauce, thank you again for, he's got another message here. He says, first, I want to say I'm a proud owner of a green Maran motoring shirt. I appreciate that. He says, second, I drove a 2015 base model F-Type recently, and it blew my mind. Great, fast, great sound, good value, underrated. 100% underrated. That's what I was saying in my review too. Yeah, you don't have the limited slip differential in the base model, and you miss out on 40 horsepower. Very minor things. Honestly, whenever I can afford a third car convertible, I would be more than happy with a base model F-Type. Because, I mean, yeah, limited slip is nice, but I don't really drive cars at 10 tenths on the road anyway. So limited slip, I might miss every once in a while, but probably not enough to pay the premium for the S if it's a big jump up. But, yeah, that's definitely an underrated car, I think, especially if you can find one with the active exhaust. A lot of them don't have that. That might kind of hold back on the fun a little bit because I just want that exhaust to be wide open so it can just scream like those engines do. But I think the F-Type is fantastic. But anyway, we'll move on from the F-Type here so it doesn't just turn into a Jagger club in here tonight. But Jonah says, what do you think of the Aston Martin Rapide? I think it's awesome. It's another super cool car that I'm glad a company took a risk and did something out of the ordinary. And even if it wasn't a huge success, now there is the option for someone to buy a Aston Martin four-door with a V12 engine that sounds fantastic, looks super good. And that's another really cool car. If you're looking for something that's used, it's a really fun daily driver. Might not be super reliable, be terrible on gas probably, but would be very fun to daily drive. So we have a few other questions here. So we have Jason says, okay, there's, I guess, some conversation going on. All right, we have Brianna says Porsche Panamera certified pre-owned would be a sweet daily. Yeah, that would be sweet too. I mean, I reviewed an old Panamera Turbo a while back, and those things are rockets, even the old ones. And they're very comfortable, very soft. Another car too, if you're okay spending less money, would be Kevin, is to just get a Stinger GT. They're fantastic. You get so much car for the money. You get a huge hatch, tons of power, very nice and luxurious, and you can get it all for 50 grand or less. So it's all very impressive. All right. So Hoovie's Rapide seems to be reliable, supposedly, according to Jonah. I have not kept up with him, but that's awesome that he has one, and I'm glad. Hopefully they actually are reliable. That would be great to, if they actually can be. I know that Aston, their former CEO now, Andy Palmer, tweeted a while back that like one of their DB11 prototype like test vehicles that is still driven around has like 120,000 miles on it, and it's totally fine, like hasn't needed a single thing, which, anyone who's looking for pre-owned Astons, that's very encouraging that brand new twin turbo V12 that they introduced in the DB11 seems to be absolutely solid, even in the earliest production versions. That's awesome. So yeah, hopefully Aston's being a little more reliable. That'd be great. All right. So Devin says he's going to get a Honda Civic because he's wanting a gas saver, and yeah, those get fantastic fuel economy, and you still have really good handling in the Civic as well. Ann says, hi Matt, which would you take, Charger Scat Pack or Challenger Scat Pack automatic? I think I like the looks of the Challenger better. It's just kind of cool with the retro looks. The Charger is great though if you need four doors. You can't go wrong with either one because they both drive fairly similarly. It's honestly, if you would blindfold me, it'd be hard for me to tell you which one I'm in because they feel very, very similar. They're both heavy, large vehicles that have a ton of power, lots of wheel spin, and are both absolutely hilariously fun. And I'm actually excited because I'm going to have a Charger Scat Pack wide body press vehicle at the end of this month. And I'm excited because I haven't lived with an actual Charger yet. I've had Challenger press cars in the past, but that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to drive that around for a week. That'll be sweet. Anderson says, if you had to buy a wagon, which one would you get? Big fan of your weekly show. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Had to buy a wagon. Probably right now my pick would be an Audi RS6 Avant. I'm so glad they're bringing that to the States. Another quirky car that companies are taking a risk on. Probably won't pay off, but I respect them for doing it. And so I would gladly, if I could afford one and wanted a cool daily driver, RS6 Avant all day long. The E63 S-Wagon would also probably be the runner-up. Those are fantastic as well. But I think those are the most exciting wagons out there that I can think of. Again, there's the Stinger and stuff, which is kind of a wagon, I guess. But yeah, so alrighty, let me see here. All right, we have Zachary Jones says, what do you think of the 2011 Ferrari FF? Because it was a very cool car. The Ferrari made a four-door Grand Tour and had incredible sounding V12. I agree. I am bummed. I don't know if you heard the GTC4 Lusso just got discontinued, and that's obviously the newer version of the FF, and that's another car exactly like the others. I guess that's another wagon, kind of. If that counts as a wagon, then 100%. GTC4 Lusso would be my pick for the previous question. But yeah, I love the FF. I loved watching Stream 150 with his ownership experience with his, and now the GTC4 Lusso that he has is so cool. I'm so jealous. That is probably one of my top dream cars is the Lusso still. But the FF is still fantastic. They're still good looking, and yeah, to be honest, like they're gorgeous. I agree. They're super attractive. You have a V12, you have all-wheel drive and a hatch. It's just like, and that Ferrari V12 is the best V12 in the world, in my opinion. Yeah, those things are fantastic, man. I'm sad to see the V12 go from Ferrari. It's sounding like we're going to get the 812 GTO that was spied this past week. That's might be the last of these V12s from Ferrari, and that'll truly be a sad day because, man, every time I hear one of those engines, it gives me goosebumps. I love those things. They're fantastic. All right, we have 777 Atrial is saying, used Lexus RCFs are sitting around 40K. I was thinking of picking one up as a daily. Thoughts? Another great daily driver, and that's one that's going to be super reliable. And I think that's another future classic, the RCF. They were underappreciated when they came out because it didn't handle as good as an M4 or a C63, which is true. But they handle really well. The one that I had last fall was fantastic. And I think they're just really fun. I mean, yes, it's not going to be the sharpest or whatever, but I think it's a really nice balance of a nice, comfortable daily driver, great sounding, strong V8, great looks. And you have the Lexus reliability. So I think that would be a solid, used car buy. I think it's going to be something that's not going to let you down. Most likely those V8s seem to be pretty good. And yeah, I think that's probably a solid choice. All right, we have Chi is asking, does Honda's 1.5 turbo motor still have oil dilution problems? I don't think so. I think it's gotten better from what I've seen. And I think it was Edmunds. They had one as a long-term test vehicle, and theirs didn't have that issue. So it's not guaranteed that it's going to have that issue, especially if you're buying a used one. You can check the Carfax and see if it's had any issues in the past, but if it hasn't had any issues yet, you should be good with it. As far as new ones, I don't think it's, shouldn't be too big of a problem. I know it was mostly just CRVs. I don't remember if the Civic Si had the issue as well or not. So I guess it depends on which car you're looking at with that engine in it. But yeah, that engine just doesn't have a lot of character in the Si. That's my only problem with it in that car. But I think as far as like if you're going for a CRV, I think the hybrid version is the better way to go, and the new CRVs anyway, and then you avoid that engine entirely, and then you're set. But yeah, and our GTI guy says, does the RCF come in a manual? It does not. It's automatic only, which is a little bit of a bummer because it's not the greatest automatic in the world. But for daily driving, it's should be totally fine, and still has paddle shifters and fairly quick, and not too bad. Zachary says, hey, Matt, what are your thoughts on if a used 2016 Cadillac ATS-V had the 6.2 liter V8 from the Camaro SS that would have been the perfect luxury sports sedan / coupe? Yeah, and it fit too, like I think Car and Driver was talking for a while about how they wanted GM to do that because it fit in there very easily. And maybe someone will swap one over if they haven't already. Maybe someone already has. But that would be pretty amazing because you just have a really fun package since it's the smaller ATS body and you have that big V8. It'd be a lot of fun. That would be a cool combo. It'd be a fun project car if anyone's looking for any new project car ideas, since every YouTuber out there is doing a million project cars. Someone do that. That would be an awesome one that I would love watching for sure. All right. Jorge says, do you think a teaching your spouse to drive a manual video would do well? I'm sure it would do very well. People are even asking for me to do another manual video on the Bullet. And I did go back and watch my original how to drive a manual video, and there are some things I would improve in it since that was filmed, 8 years ago now at this point. I've definitely gotten a little bit better with my presentation, I think, and stuff since then. So I may do another video like that someday. But as far as teaching Beth, I mean, I could. The only thing is I very much baby the Bullet, and so I even feel terrible if I stall it. And so trying to, not even just her, because she knows how to drive a manual, she knows the mechanics, so she wouldn't, be that rough with it. It's just I just would want to find a car that I could teach her on. Maybe if I do a project car someday that's manual, I could teach her on that. But I don't think she really has much interest in learning either. She's happy just having her automatic, and these days, especially with all the crazy drivers out there, she likes just focusing on driving and not having to think about shifting. And I don't blame her for that. But yeah, I think that type of video would do very well. Anything like that, with other YouTubers, when they do stuff like that, seems to do very well. So I'm sure that would be a guaranteed hit on the channel if I did that. But I'm not sure if I'm going to want to do that anytime soon, but maybe someday. Beth says 500,000 subscribers and she'll do it. She just texted me. So if we get to 500,000 subscribers, we'll do a Beth learning how to drive manual video. I'll have to figure out what car. It might be like a beater or something. We'll have to see. But yeah, so there we go. There's the challenge. We get to 500,000 subscribers. We'll do that then. Maybe that'd be fun. There we go. So, all right. We have Griffin. Thank you so much for another super chat. He says, your original how to drive a manual was how I learned. Crazy, that was 8 years ago. Well, I'm glad it helped you. That's so awesome. I hope it helped a lot of people, and maybe encouraged a few people to try out a manual, because it's really not too scary once you get the fundamentals down. It's not hard, and that's awesome that's how you learn. So that just, even if one person, if you're the only person who learned from that video, that was worthwhile on its own, because that is so awesome. So thanks for telling me that. That's super cool. It makes me feel really good. All right. Tu Chang says, back to DoorDash. Thank you for the super chat. I don't understand what you're getting at there, but I guess you're maybe going back to work if you do DoorDash, or you're going to get DoorDash. I don't know. But thank you for your support of the channel with all the super chats, Tu Chang. I really appreciate it. It's very generous. All right. We have Don A is asking, I probably butchered that. Don Ayer, maybe that's probably it. What do you think about Rivian? Does it stand a chance against Tesla's Cybertruck? I don't know. I think they have a lot of pre-orders. Sounds like they got their manufacturing all lined up and stuff. So, I think it has one of the better chances of doing well against Tesla. There's so many companies obviously trying to challenge them. I think that's the one that's going to, be the first competitor, since they actually have a production line ready to go. And if it wasn't for COVID, they would have actually had deliveries by the end of this year. But I think that has the potential to, be a more traditional truck, especially since the Cybertruck's going to be so goofy. If they actually build it the way that it looks right now, it's going to be massive. It doesn't fit in anyone's garage. Whereas the Rivian, I think, should fit in people's garages. That basic fact on its own is going to help Rivian to sell trucks, because who wants to park their $80,000 Cybertruck outside, even if it is bulletproof and all that kind of stuff? Like, you don't want to keep that outside. I don't know. So, yeah, I think the Rivian has a pretty good chance. And who knows about the Cybertruck, how that's going to pan out. That's going to be very interesting to follow that one. I'm a little skeptical about some of Mr. Musk's plans these days, but all right. A Will says, do you have a motorcycle license? I don't. Don't really have any interest in riding motorcycles. I would be kind of curious to try and pick up dirt bike riding if there was some magical day someday where I had plenty of money, plenty of time, and had already exhausted all my other hobbies I'd love to pursue. I would like to try dirt bike riding someday, because it does seem really fun. Riding on those streets, though, no one pays attention. So, I'm terrified every time I see motorcycle riders, just because I see so many bad drivers nearly hitting them and stuff. If I'm going to be hit by someone who's texting while they're driving, I want to have airbags and metal around me. I don't want to be, on my own, just on some little bike with no protection whatsoever. So yeah, no motorcycle stuff. But if you are looking for motorcycle stuff, my buddy Rated R Cars, he does really good motorcycle reviews. He just got another Ducati, and he has a very fun channel. You can go check his channel out if you want to see some motorcycle content there. All right. So Theo says, Matt, what's the slowest car you've ever driven? Probably a smart car. That would be one of the top ones. Man, that was a horrible car to drive. And the other one, I actually drove an original Volkswagen, was a Super Beetle convertible. It was like a 75 or something. This was back when I worked at one of the car dealerships. They got it in on a trade, actually, believe it or not. And man, that thing, just trying to do 45 miles an hour was a full throttle, foot to the floor, stand on the floor, be like, come on, let's go. Like that's, very slow, those old Beetles. So that was probably the other slowest thing that I've ever driven. It was comical. I'd love to review an original Beetle again, just because it's so hilariously fun to drive, even though it's terrifying to not have any power, but you get used to it, I guess. People lived with those things for decades. Iggy DC35 says, thoughts on the Aston Martin DBS Superleggera. That is another dream car. If I won the lottery, I'd take one of those, take a GTC for a Lusso, take an 812 GTS, and probably about 10 other cars. But yeah, I love the DBS Superleggera. It's so good looking. Like, man, it's so good looking. Whenever I was at the LA Auto Show back in the fall, they had an orange one. And it was like bright orange. Like it wouldn't be the color I would buy, but like just staring at that thing, I was like, good grief, that is a sweet looking car. Aston Martin's one of my favorite companies. If I got to review a new Aston Martin, it'd be hard for me to even not be biased, because it's just like, they're just all so fantastic looking. I'm smitten by Aston Martins. Linda says she learned manual at 15, but her mom taught her. That's awesome. I'm hoping to one day teach my kids manual if they care at all about that in the very far off future. That would be very fun to teach them someday if they wanted to learn. All right. So Devin says he has a 450 dirt bike and he's going to get a Raptor too. It's a wonderful pastime. Trust me. I'm sure it is. I mean, it seemed very, fun for all the people that I've seen that have, ridden dirt bikes and stuff in the past, especially if I lived in a place where I could really kind of get out in the middle of nowhere and just kind of escape. That would be a lot of fun, I think. So yeah, maybe someday. We'll just see. All right, we have Tu Chang. Thank you so much for another super chat. He said, one more thing. If you like reading scripts, I'll send you one I was working on. Yeah, feel free to send it over. I don't have a ton of free time. Obviously, this channel keeps me so busy, but I will definitely check it out and try and give you my thoughts on it. Speaking of busyness, too, before I get to some of the other questions here, I do want to mention that I'll probably be probably towards the end of this year, early next year, scaling back on the weekend bonus reviews that I've been doing. Because I've noticed over this past year, it seems like the videos that not only do well originally, but the videos that continue to do well for 6 months, a year later, seems to be the performance stuff. Like that's clearly the stuff that I enjoy doing the most. That's the stuff that you guys seem to enjoy watching the most. And so doing, a lot of the crossovers and stuff, while it has kind of exposed me, I think, to a little bit of a wider demographic, I don't know if it is worthwhile, because it keeps me so much busier than I used to be. Any of you who follow the channel for a while used to know I just did like one Wednesday review and then the weekly update. And like, that was it. It was like 2 videos a week, maybe 3 if I went to a car show or something. And now I'm doing 5 videos a week and I'm just so burned out. Doing the interior reviews is like a little bit of an extra step, and Beth has been helping me edit those, which is great. But, so doing, 2 interior reviews a week and then doing 2 actual car reviews a week, having multiple press cars every week. So the Bullet sits in the garage for weeks on end, all that stuff. It's been a lot this year, and I'm thankful that I've been able to work as much as I have, because I know a lot of people haven't been able to have jobs and stuff. So I'm not complaining at all. It's just like, I'm starting to realize that like doing the Ford Escape Hybrid and getting 4,000 views on that video is not worth it. It's not worth the trouble of driving that car around for a week instead of the Bullet and, doing a whole video on it and then 4,000 people watch it. Like there's no point in doing that anymore. So I'm going to scale back on some of that stuff. And that's why if you guys followed, if you subscribe to the channel, you'll see that I asked a question in the polls yesterday about if you guys want to see minivan reviews. Because with the minivans, there's only 3 of them that are actually new right now that are coming out this fall. And I could just do those 3 and be done. And it could kind of, expose me to a few other, people that you generally probably wouldn't watch the channel. And I know that a lot of you probably do have families and probably do buy minivans. So that's why I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on minivans. But, on Instagram, whenever I did the poll on there was like 60% of people that said they would watch it. But on YouTube, it was like, I think 59% of people said they would not watch a minivan review. So I'm probably going to skip the minivans, even though I'm kind of curious to try them personally. I just don't think it would pay off because it's not even a view thing. It's just a matter of if it's not going to be something that's well received, and I have to do all this extra work, I'm just not going to do it, I think. So I'm going to focus on, the performance stuff. And I know a lot of people have been asking for me to do more used performance cars again, because that was what I built the channel on, was doing used stuff. And I want to get back to that. I was obviously hesitant with COVID this past year. But I'm hoping that once that improves, especially next year, I want to get back to actually going to some of the old used car dealerships that I worked with in the past and doing some cool used performance stuff again, sticking to just performance stuff and trying to do some of those. I want to do more of the privately owned vehicles that so many of you have offered me over the past several years that are still waiting for me to review their cars. I want to do a lot of those and do more road trips to, review more of those cars next year. So there are going to be some of those. I'll be doing less press cars hopefully next year and doing more just used performance stuff, because I think that is really the strength of the channel and what you guys want to see. But definitely, let me know here in the chat, what you think about that plan. But I've just been so burned out the past few months. I'm like, I can't keep up 5 videos a week, especially if no one's going to watch them. It's just exhausting. So yeah, a little bit of a behind the scenes sneak peek for you guys here since you're hanging out in the live stream with me. I really appreciate it. Brandon, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, 93 F250 turbo diesel 4x4, 93,000 miles that I love. It has left me stranded 2 times with the family. Should I just pony up the money for newer reliability? That kind of just comes down to, how much you love that truck. Because I know it sucks to be stranded. Whenever I was a kid, my parents had a Ford Tempo, and that thing left us stranded multiple times, and it was bad, and it was crappy. So that's not a fun experience. I mean, if you love diesels, just get a newer diesel, or, if you like that generation F250, maybe try and find a V8 version that might be a little more reliable or something. I don't know. But older Fords, are definitely hit or miss. So, it's a tough call. But if you have the money, newer stuff's generally going to be a little more reliable. I'd probably just, go for a newer F-150 or something like that. But that's a tough decision, I know, especially if it's a truck you love. It's always tough whenever they start letting you down. You could always, if you're wanting to, if it's leaving you stranded, you could always just try and refurbish, the inside, swap out a new engine or something, do a little bit of an upgrade that way, or whatever is letting you down, whether it's fuel pumps or whatever, swapping into all new stuff. And then that way you still keep the same old truck. That's another option. But good luck. That's definitely a tough decision. So we have a couple more super chats here. Thank you so much, Jorge. He says, we'll enjoy Beth's 500,000 subscriber manual video. Yeah, hopefully we get there. The sooner we get there, the sooner we can do the video, and we'll find a car. I think that's something we could definitely do. Trav FDY, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, buddy, when are you going to get that F-Type? Hopefully someday. He says, let's get an SVR and 400 Sport review. What do you think of the F-Type's new look? I'm not a fan. I just saw the new F-Type styling a few weeks back at a dealership, and, my first impression was like, wow, that looks really good. I think I do prefer it a little bit more over the old one. But now, as a few weeks have passed and I'm looking at it some more, and then I look at the old stuff, especially the SVR and stuff, I think I like the way the fenders come up higher on the older F-Type. And I think it gives it a more curvy look that's more close to the E-Type than the new one is. I think the new front end kind of lost some of that character and some of that sculpting. And so I think I am slowly working myself back to team old F-Type. I'm hoping to get one someday. Trust me, both Beth and I, we both want it. And that's one of the reasons why I love the F-Type, because it has a fantastic automatic. So she can drive it as well. We can share it, and she can drive that one and enjoy that as well. And so, yeah, I'd love to do an SVR. I'd love to do a 400 Sport. If anyone has those and they'd like to offer them to me, once it's safe to do so, I will immediately go and review those. I would love to review both of those. They sound fantastic. That would be awesome. So Devin says he gets burnt out too sometimes. Just got to keep going, though. I agree. I have just been pushing through and, doing my best, but I'm also trying to work smart and not, just working hard, because hard work, like I said, I put out videos that no one wants to see and they get 4,000 views. That's not paying off. So I'd rather just try and be smarter about it. And I am looking into maybe having someone do my editing for me someday. There's a couple companies now that do it, and it's fairly affordable, that I may try and do that to kind of cut down on the burnout so that I can just focus on driving and filming and focusing on doing better reviews, because I'm always so busy that I can't even film as long as I would like to film, because I'm like, oh, I got to go back and edit, or I got to work on something else, and it's just always like overloaded. And so if I actually, didn't have to worry about editing, then I could like buy a drone, for example, and do cool panning drone shots like some of these other channels do. And I could take my time and do some more cinematic stuff, and I can maybe reincorporate the intros with the music like I used to do. I cut that out because that was so time consuming to add that in and stuff. So that's something that I'd like to get back to someday. So I'm hoping we can get back to doing that, and I can kind of find some kind of equilibrium where I'll have a little bit more time and not be so burned out. Jonah's asking, do I have pets? I do. Beth and I have 2 Maine Coon cats, Daisy and Pippa, and you can go follow their Instagram page. I believe it's Daisy and Pippa Kittens. I'm not sure, but if you follow me on Instagram, I'll post a picture of them soon, and you can follow the page there. But if you want to see what they look like, they're pretty awesome. Sometimes they come in here whenever I'm doing the live streams, but they haven't come up to investigate tonight. But if they do, I'll put them on my lap here. Daisy and Pippa Kittens is the name of the page on Instagram if you want to see. But yeah, they're cuddling with Beth right now, she says. So she's texting me while I'm doing this here. But yeah, they're great cats. They're awesome. All right. So Bragger Bro says, hey, Matt, what's your opinion on the 06 Porsche Cayman S? It's fantastic. Actually, Beth says it's Daisy and Pippa Maine Coon. So she changed the username. So there you go. But anyway, the 06 Cayman is fantastic. I think it was an 06 or an 07 Cayman S I reviewed a long time ago in the middle of winter. That was an interesting review. I'm in like this gigantic winter coat. But you can go watch that video if you want to hear all my thoughts on it. They're fun cars, though. They're so good. And even looking back on it, it still had that same great magic that I loved about the brand new Cayman GT4 with a high revving flat 6, just very good sharp handling, nice lightweight, low seating position, great manual, all that kind of stuff is all present in those older Porsches. With those, though, like any of the older German vehicles, you just have to make sure that you are prepared to pay for repairs, because they like to break. They like to give you all kinds of codes and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's the only tricky thing about all those old German stuff. But Preston says, how do you feel about an all-wheel drive Mustang? Well, I think technically, the Mach-E is going to be an all-wheel drive Mustang. But if you're talking real Mustangs, then yes. I think that would be an awesome addition, since, the Charger now offers, or the Challenger now offers it. It would be great to do that. And so I think it'd be kind of cool if they did it the right way too, like actually gave it a good engine, didn't just pair it up with the EcoBoost or something. I think it could be a really fun combo for sure. Mark says, how are you coping with COVID? Just as well as everyone else, I guess. It's definitely gotten better now. Because the thing that made it hard for me was, YouTube took a huge hit with ad rates and stuff, because all the companies that were advertising either pulled their ads or they didn't have any budget, and they were all, pulling back for a while. And so going down to about half of your normal income isn't fun. I'm still thankful I had an income, because I know a lot of people lost their jobs. So I'm not complaining, but it was just an adjustment, and it, was tough and kind of, put me behind on, saving for that F-type and all those types of things. And so, other than that, it's just like everyone else, it's uncomfortable. It's not fun. I'm, desperately hoping there's a vaccine soon and we can get on and, hopefully, get out of this whole situation, sometime in the reasonable, future. But yeah, it's just 2020 is not a great year. I'm just glad that, at least for me, I don't know if this is for you guys as well, but time has been passing really fast. The weeks are flying by, and I am not complaining. I'm like, let's just fast forward to 2021, please. Like, I just want to get out of this year. It's been a fun year. I mean, I can't complain. I've had an NSX press car. I had a C8 press car. I've had a lot of fun this year, in a year that a lot of people haven't been having a lot of fun. So I am not complaining, but like everyone else, it's just uncomfortable. So hopefully we can get beyond this soon. But hopefully all you guys are holding up okay as well. I know it's been tough on everyone. All right, so I don't want to get political with the whole vaccine and stuff though. But yeah, I just hope everything is over over someday soon. AMPM says that wrecked Bugatti model in your broadcast room. Why is that significant to you? So if you're talking about the Lego one that I have here, that is actually, I did a video with Lego back in the fall where I built this, and so that's something that they gifted me for doing the video. And so it's a really cool, it's a large thing. I can actually see if I can pick it up here. It's right next to my desk here. It is massive. So I can't remember the actual scale of it. It's maybe 1/12 or something. I don't know, but it's huge. I think the Bugatti is also, the Chiron is one of my like really crazy dream cars. If I was like insanely, disgustingly rich, I would have a Chiron. And so this is kind of probably the only Chiron I'll ever have, and that's okay. But it's kind of cool just to have, because I think it's a gorgeous looking car too, even when the Lego form. I know it's a little weird looking, but yeah, I think it's awesome. And so just kind of a fun little thing to have here. And I also have a bunch of other model cars. Anyone who used to watch the weekly updates before I moved, we're talking like 5 years ago, probably remembers all the other model cars that I had. And I still have them. I just don't have anywhere to put them right now, but hopefully when I move, maybe next year, we'll see. That got pushed back because of COVID as well, but hopefully I'll be able to move maybe next year and have a better setup for the weekly updates, have some more signs and stuff. I even give you guys another sneak peek since you're watching the live streams here. I have this cool metal sign I actually got for my birthday. It's a bullet sign. I'm hoping to either hang it up here, somewhere in my new office someday, or having it in my garage right in front of the bullet parking spot would be kind of cool. But it's actually like metal, and it's a really cool sign I got for my birthday, and I really love this. It's awesome. And so yeah, that's going to go up someday. I also have a bunch of really cool, I got like a little mini like drive-in sign that illuminates and stuff that actually Beth made for me. And I got a couple other cool things. I have all kinds of cool decorations I can do for a weekly update setup someday. I just have no real place to put them right now with the current setup. And I don't want to be, putting a bunch of holes in the wall if I'm going to be moving in, 6 months or a year or whatever. So anyway, yep. Other questions here. Let me see. So Joshua says it's either a 1/10 or 1/8 scale. It might be 1/8 now that you're mentioning that kind of sounds about right. Oh, me underscore says that he has one as well. So 1/8. So thank you. I appreciate it. That's awesome. Hopefully it didn't take you as long to build it as it took me and Beth. It was a team effort between the two of us, and that was way more work than I thought it was going to be to build this thing. It was crazy because the engine moves, all the pistons move and everything. It's insane. If you watch the Lego video, you'll know it was very detailed. We kind of showed how we put it together and stuff. It was cool. So John M says, first off, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, would you rather have Daily Driven Exotics P1 or Stradman's Veyron? It's a tough choice. I don't really want either of them. They're sweet cars, but those wouldn't be my picks if I had that much money to spend. But between the two, if you put a gun to my head, I would probably say the Veyron, just because it was such a, revolutionary car whenever it came out. Watching James May do like 253 or whatever in it and stuff was super fun. And the Veyron's I still respect just the insanity of that car and what it was able to do, even way back then. I think that would probably be my pick between the two. Omar says, what do you think about the coming 400Z? I'm excited for it. I think, now we know that's going to be coming, or at least the prototype version will be revealed on September 16th. Excuse me. And then we're also going to have, I think, the full reveal sometime before the end of this year is what I remember hearing from one of their executives in an interview they did with someone else. But yeah, I'm excited for it. And if it's, if it's basically what the rumors suggesting it's going to be, I think it's going to be, really fun vehicle and a nice refresh kind of for the 370 to hopefully make everyone happy that's a Z fan. I think it should be. I really am excited about the looks too. From the teasers, it looks really, really enticing so far. I love the retro looks. I'm a sucker for retro stuff, so it's going to strike a chord with me with that for sure. Charles and Don Jones says, Toyota Tundra needs an update. Yeah, it definitely does. It's one of the oldest ones out there at this point. But it, again, goes back to Toyota being reliable. And like I was talking about a while back earlier here, with the old engine and stuff, it's going to, continue on being reliable. Like that one guy put 1 million miles on his Tundra. That's because it's an engine that's been proven over several years and is solid. And yeah, but I think they are doing a new Tundra. You know, there's talks about having a twin turbo V6 and stuff, and that was supposed to come, I think, this year or next year, but I think they keep pushing it back. I'm not sure why, but yeah, it's definitely coming, I think, at some point. All right, so Preston Crockett says, who would win, a V8 Raptor whenever it comes out or the new Ram truck? It's hard to say. If the V8 Raptor, if it does come and it does have the same engine as the GT500, it would have, you know, about 60 more horsepower than the Ram T-Rex, but we know that FCA can get more power out of that engine. So it could, you know, up the ante for a refresh to match the Raptor. So who knows, you know, it'd be, I'm sure both of them would be insanely fast. But if the T-Rex stayed where it was at and the Raptor had the more power, I think, you know, the Raptor would probably win. But, you know, we'd have to see how well they put the power down, all that kind of stuff. Connor SC says, is the Lcf really canceled? I don't know. I keep hearing rumors back and forth. Some people say it's canceled. Other people say it isn't. You know, there were spy shots of what looked like a basically complete LCF running around. So I don't know why they would cancel it that late. And we do know that Lexus is going to have a new twin turbo V8 that's going to be their new flagship engine and everything. So I don't know why they wouldn't put it in the LCF, unless it's just going to be a truck motor for the new LX and GX and stuff like that. But I don't know. I still think it's probably coming, but you know, who knows? It's hard to tell. Let me see. We've got a bunch of other questions. I'm so glad to see so many of you still hanging out here. Devin says, what holiday are you excited about? Christmas is always my favorite. Thanksgiving is always fun too, though. And Theodore Brooks says, what car ever scared you? I'm trying to think of a car that was really scary. I think the stuff that was like nerve-wracking to drive was all the old muscle cars that I reviewed last fall and into this winter. So those, I filmed all those last summer, and they were tricky to drive. I'll say that, especially if you watched this Super B 6-pack. That one had that 4-on-the-floor manual, and man, that thing was tricky to go into gear. Talk about tough manuals. Like, that's the thing. It is so easy to learn manual these days with all the newest stuff. Like the Corolla has the intelligent manual that almost prevents you from stalling. It smooths out your shifts. I mean, a dog could learn how to drive a manual, I think, on a Corolla. Those are so easy to drive. If you want to drive what it was you really like to drive a manual back in the day, I mean, those things are tough. There's no synchros. You have to rev match every shift, upshift and downshift. So you have to actually double clutch with those if you want to be really smooth with your shifts. I was not double clutching, and so I wasn't the smoothest, but I managed to not mess up the transmission and those things. They're tricky. The Challenger was tricky that I did, the 1970 Challenger too. That also didn't like going into gear. And some of that stuff might be age related, but those old manuals, they were kind of scary because I was like, man, these are like really expensive, nice, pristine muscle cars. I don't want to mess them up, but there's no safety net there. There's no traction control. There's nothing to save you. There is nothing to help you with the manual. The clutch is super heavy, so I'm getting a leg workout while I'm at it. And then there's no power steering in like the Challenger. So I'm like, wrenching at the wheel, and they were hard to drive. I respect people that drive those things these days because they are not easy compared to modern stuff. Like I said, even the Mustang Bullet, which doesn't have the greatest modern manual, but even that is a cakewalk compared to those old Mopars. All right. Let me see. We have Fia's asking, how did you become interested in cars? Any certain video games? That's a cool question. So I don't remember the first time that I was like, all right, I'm into cars now. I think I just always, was exposed to cars. Like my dad isn't really a car guy. So it was never like him being like, hey, check out this cool car. He knew that I was into cars a little bit. And my grandfather on my dad's side was actually into cars back in the day. He kind of stretched to get himself a Studebaker back in the 50s when those were really, one of the factory hot rods back then. And he kind of was into some performance stuff back then. He had like a hot rodded up Mercury before everyone did them, in the past 50 years. He actually had one in the early 50s, kind of like the whole James Dean look and stuff. So maybe I got it from him, in the blood or something. I have no clue. But as far as video games and stuff, I think it was like, my parents got me, car toys and Hot Wheels and stuff like that. And then video game wise, so I started off with a Super Nintendo, and on there, you know, there weren't any like licensed car games for the Super Nintendo, really. It was like Mario Kart. There was a couple like off-road truck games that I played on the Super Nintendo and stuff like that. But I don't, you know, it was like just basic stuff like pole position. But I think the car game that really started getting me into cars was Gran Turismo 2. So I wasn't fortunate enough to be able to get a PlayStation 1 as soon as they came out. So by the time I had a PlayStation 1, Gran Turismo 2 had already come out. And so that was the first car game that I bought. And that kind of was really exciting because like my dad had just bought a 1997 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport. And in Gran Turismo, I was able to buy a WRX wagon, first exposure to the WRX, and had the same color as my dad's car. And as, you know, a 7 or 8 year old, that was really cool. And so Gran Turismo 2 is the first one. I was like, oh, wow, I can like add an intake. I can add an exhaust. And so I think that's when I started kind of getting more into cars. So I would probably give credit to Gran Turismo 2 for really advancing my love of cars and making me more knowledgeable about them. That's when I kind of started memorizing horsepower numbers and all that kind of stuff. And then I think the thing that really made me want to review cars was my aunt actually got me a subscription to Road and Track in 2001 when I was 11 years old. And that I like just soaked up like a sponge. Like I read every single page. I memorized every spec of every car. Like I was like super into that. And I saved every one of those issues of Road and Track. And for years, you know, I just was like, this is what I want to do. I want to review cars. And then of course, times changed. Magazines went by the wayside for the most part. And now here I am doing it on YouTube instead. So it's kind of awesome. That's why this still is my dream job. I absolutely love doing it. Even if it does burn me out sometimes, I still just have this natural curiosity of like, how does that new Toyota Yaris drive? Or, you know, I really want to drive that new C8 Corvette. And thankfully I'm in a position where I'm able to try it out. And so it's still living the dream. I do really feel thankful and, you know, fortunate that I've been able to do this. So Yuki says, will you get Gran Turismo 7? So right now I'm an Xbox One owner, but, you know, I don't know about Gran Turismo because recently I've liked the Forza games better with their physics. I thought the physics was a little bit more realistic, at least to how I drive, that I like that the most. But I mean, I haven't played Forza 7 in, you know, at least a year or two. So yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's going to depend. See, I'm really excited about like the more arcadey games now. You know, like I'm excited. I don't know if you guys saw, there's the teaser for Test Drive Unlimited, whatever the new version is, it's coming out for the next gen systems next year. And that looks really interesting because I loved the first Test Drive Unlimited. That's why I actually bought an Xbox 360 in the first place back when those came out for that game. And then Forza, you know, after that and stuff. But yeah, I might go to PlayStation again if I even have the free time to play video games. I have so little free time to play games anymore. One little thing I've been doing on the side, off and on, which is not car related, but my friend actually gave me a custom painted Game Boy Color, which was a real nostalgia trip. It's painted gold, and he gave me Pokemon Gold to go along with it. And I love the Pokemon games back in the day. Played through them as a kid. And so I've been playing that a little bit whenever I've had a spare 30 minutes here and there. That's been kind of fun to go through a little bit. So I have some time, but actually getting into a racing game and going through the career and stuff is a big time commitment. So I usually don't have a lot of time to do that. Need for Speed for PlayStation 1, Matt's mentioning. That's another, that was a good one. All the PlayStation Need for Speed games were so good. I spent many long sleepovers and stuff playing those nonstop. They're fantastic. Carlos, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey Matt, how does getting press cars work? Do you get to choose what cars they bring you? So I do. That isn't the case for everyone though. So first, I mean, thank you so much for the super chat. But yeah, as far as the press cars go, it's kind of weird. So some people just take whatever is sent to them. I know a lot of people, they're just like, oh, wow, this showed up in the driveway. From the get-go, when I did press cars, I told companies like, I need to know what you're sending me, and I need to be able to refuse them because I don't, especially since I'm in Pittsburgh, most of my press vehicles come from either DC or New York. So they're driving at least 4 to 5 hours to drop off a press car for me each week, each way. And so that's a big time commitment for their drivers. And I don't want them to do that if it's a video that I know is going to not do well. Now, there are some times where, I will take a press car that I'm not super confident will do well on the channel, but it just makes sense logistically. to get, something in. So I will do that. And that's where sometimes I'll review cars that might not be my first pick, but I still do them anyway because it makes it a little easier for the scheduler. But generally I do, they'd say, here's the cars we have, or I oftentimes will ask them, I'm like, hey, like I'm still looking for a GT500, still looking for, a Mustang EcoBoost high performance pack. Do you have any of these cars in your inventory? And then they will let me know if they do or they don't. And so we kind of go back and forth a little bit. And, so I do definitely say no to a lot of press vehicles. And like I was mentioning a little bit earlier, I have the option to review all the new minivans this fall. The new Honda Odyssey is coming in here. I can review that if I want to. The new Sienna will be coming in the fall, the new Pacifica. But as the poll results have shown, it seems like most of you would not watch a minivan review. And I understand they're not the most exciting. So I'll probably turn those down, for example. And I'm going to be, like I mentioned earlier, kind of focusing more on performance stuff. And I try and, if they're wanting to send me something that is not exciting, I usually just say, look, like it's not going to get any views. It's not worth it for you guys to send it to me. And, they appreciate the honesty. And so they're more than happy to work with me and, get me the things that are actually going to do well on the channel. But yeah, great question. Thank you so much again for the super chat. Joshua says, how is the Bullet? So it is doing well. So, I did the 2-year update, and that was, I guess, a month ago at this point. And since I did that update, it has left the garage, I don't know, a handful of times, sadly. I take it out for a fun little drive every once in a while, but especially the weeks when I have a lot of performance vehicles or I have multiple vehicles, especially with these COVID times, I don't have a lot of places to go anymore. So I can only do so many target runs before I'm like, all right, well, I only managed to put 30 miles on this car because I've gone nowhere this week. And so, there's just times where I'm like, I got to just drive these press cars. I can't take the Bullet out. And so generally, especially last year, most of the miles I put like 10,000 miles on the Bullet last year. Most of those miles were road trips. I went to Vermont and back. I went to Indianapolis for the Indy 500. If you watch that video, I went to Virginia. I went to Maryland, all over. So it was mostly road trips or how I racked up that miles because I don't daily drive as much as I want to. I almost always have a press car. I think there was 2 or 3 weeks this entire year that I did not have a press car. I was actually able to daily drive the Bullet. And then again, it's like, what am I doing? I'm doing a target run or I'm going, somewhere 2 or 3 times a week, and that's it because I work from home. So it's kind of weird with my job. It's a good problem to have, but it's also, I kind of get jealous of people who get to drive their beloved car every single day and they get to go to work and back and they have a routine and they have a normal drive and a commute. Like I kind of miss having a commute. I miss not being able to drive my car every day and having just one car. Again, I love driving all these cars because I'm curious to see how they drive. But it's also just part of me is just, I guess, sentimental for the good old days of putting, 20,000 miles on a car every year and establishing that really strong bond with a car and stuff. And I look at all these people, I'm like, wow, that's their only car. They always just drive that car. And it kind of blows my mind anymore because I just I'm never in the same car for more than 7 days. And it's just crazy to me. It's just kind of a weird thing. Anyway, James, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, Matt, do you think the new RAV4 Prime is overpriced? I'm in Canada with only a $5,000 rebate. That's, a little bit less. We get the 7,500 here, but I honestly think, it's just kind of in a segment of its own right now because the RAV4 or the Ford Escape plug-in hybrid is only front-wheel drive, way slower, less battery range. You have, the Volvo stuff has less range, half the range. Honestly, no one else is doing anything better. And so I think it's worth even MSRP, even if there is no rebate. Yes, paying high 40s for a RAV4 is maybe a tough pill to swallow because you're not getting a luxurious interior. And yes, you can buy a, BMW X3 for the same money or something. But do you get 40 miles of electric range? Do you actually have 300 horsepower? A lot of those base, luxury crossovers, you have 250 horsepower from a 4-cylinder and that's it. The RAV4 Prime is a ton of fun to drive. I think it's super innovative. And the problem is honestly not even the price. The problem is you can't find them. That's the biggest bummer. Only doing a couple thousand of them. And even next year, it's not going to be very plentiful. So that's my only frustration with the RAV4 Prime. I think if they actually had enough ability to produce more of them, they would sell everyone even at MSRP, honestly, because it's just 40 miles of electric range is really mind blowing. That's most people's commutes. And so that car could change the world if they actually could build enough of them, I think. Chauncey Sauce, thank you so much for another super chat. I really appreciate it. Again, if you have any other questions, okay, I see you had one pop up here. He says, I own a Porsche Macan S. Would I regret my life if I traded it in for the new Bronco? I'd get the Lux trim Outer Banks with the Sasquatch package and the V6. It really depends on what you're looking for it to do. If you obviously appreciate the handling of your Macan, if you appreciate the refinement, the luxury of your Macan, then yes, I think the Bronco will be a downgrade in every way. If you want to dabble in off-roading, or if you just want something a little more rugged, something you can, beat up in the wintertime and stuff, you don't have to worry about it. Because the Macan, you might want to baby a little bit more. I could see the Bronco having some appeal there. It really comes down to personal preference. Me, if I had the choice between a Macan and a Bronco a million times over, I'd pick the Macan every time without thinking twice. But obviously the Bronco has a lot of hype. There's a lot of people that love off-roading, going on their adventures in it and stuff. And that's totally awesome for them. And so if you're one of those people that would enjoy that, I think, it'd be fantastic. There's going to be so many Broncos. I'm sure, people are really going to love them, and it'll be everywhere next year. So, certainly wouldn't be a bad buy. It'd be a fun, cool new experience. But I think the Macan's the better vehicle, at least in my opinion. All right, other questions here. Omar says, post-COVID, any plans to do another collab with Tim/Shmee150 in Europe? I would love to go to Europe again and collab with him. If you watched, the C8 video, I did with him, it was really cool to spend a day with him. And I've been able to hang out with him a little bit in the past, off and on. I ran into him at car shows and stuff in the past. He is super nice, and getting to spend a whole day driving around in the Corvette with him, he is so down to earth. And people that are in his position, with his type of money and stuff, that is rare. And he is, out of all the really, really big YouTubers, I haven't met most of them, I've only met a few of them, but he is, he's just such an awesome guy. I really like Shmee a lot, and can't say enough good things about the guy. He's super, super cool. So if there's ever an opportunity to do another collab, I would certainly jump at it. I just don't know if I'm going to be in Europe anytime soon. It's kind of, we went last year, and that was kind of like a bucket list thing to, knock it off the list. So, we loved the UK though. So, it'd be something we'd like to go back someday. It's just very expensive and, all that, but, maybe we'll see what happens. All right, we have Theo says, thoughts on a Lotus Elise or Evora? So they're fantastic. I've never reviewed one of those, but I have ridden in an Evora. I had a friend that had one back in the day when they first kind of came out. They're fantastic. The Elise is fantastic. I did drive one briefly when I used to work at a car dealership. That's my only experience driving one, but I had a couple of friends that had them, and I rode in those as well. They're fantastic. It's just a matter of having, the cramped space and stuff. But if you're okay with that, it's a fantastic little car. And as far as like sub 30 or sub $40,000 sports cars go, I still think the Elise is probably one of the coolest options out there, just because you have, it's a phenomenal driving experience. But on top of that, you have like a reliable Toyota engine, which is very rare for any kind of, exotic like that. And so it's just bulletproof, but it sounds great. It takes great to mods. It just looks great still. I think even, the oldest Elises here from this generation still look fantastic to this day. And so as long as you don't mind being in a tiny little, tin can of a car, they are phenomenal. I would love to review one of those someday. And I actually had someone that reviewed one out west. If I ever make another trip out there anytime soon, I'm going to totally jump on that opportunity, because I'd love to review an Elise. All right. So we have Dom is asking, what do you think about the new Karmas? So the Karma, there's like the Karma, and then there's the Fisker, and I think they're separate now, right? I can't keep track of those companies. I honestly don't pay attention to them too much, because I always see news about them, and then it never seems like it goes anywhere. So I kind of have quit paying attention to the Karmas. from what I saw, they seem okay. It just seems like it's mostly the same styling from like, 10 years ago. But again, I haven't really paid too much attention to them, so I'm sure my information is outdated as far as, what they're like. But Yuki's asking about my thoughts on the Lucid Air. That seems like one electric car that is up and coming that actually has a good chance of making it. And they seem sweet. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, I think it was just today, they posted the 9.9 second quarter mile time that those things are going to be able to do. It's like over 1,000 horsepower. It's like 113 kilowatt hour battery. That's going to kind of one up the Tesla a little bit. And that's awesome. I think it looks fantastic too. It looks miles better than a Model S, I think. So I'm excited about the Lucid Air. That would be a sweet car to review if they ever reach out to me or anything. But they seem like it's a very promising vehicle, and I love the looks and stuff. It's really cool. Miguel says, would you consider trading your Bullet for the new Mach 1? Definitely not. The Tremec, is appealing, but personally, I'm glad they're doing the Mach 1 for those people who want one. But the Bullet is my ultimate Mustang. That car is a keeper. I'd like to add cars someday, but I will never hopefully get rid of the Bullet. As long as it's within my control, I'm 100% keeping that car forever. It's fantastic. And it's partially because I love Steve McQueen and the movie Bullet, and I love the look of it and all that. So I'm kind of biased. It's not really an objective thing in my mind. I'm definitely just on the Bullet hype train. But yeah, it's my perfect Mustang in every way. Like Ford did basically everything perfectly on that car as far as what I would want them to do for a Bullet. And I'm gonna keep that thing forever. So that's someone, like, even if I post on Instagram about the C8 that I had for the week and how I was impressed with the new Corvette once again, even after the press trip back in February. But people are like, well, what's the real test is, are you going to get rid of your Bullet for it? And it's like, look, like, any car could be amazing, but no matter what, I'm keeping that Bullet. So there will never be a car that'll be amazing enough for me to want to get rid of the Bullet. Even though there are cars that are going to be much better than the Bullet, objectively, it's subjectively. There's going to be stuff that's more impressive. But I love that Bullet so much. Like if someone was like, hey, I'll give you an F-Type SVR, which is another car I would love to own, but they're like, I'll give you this car, but you have to keep it and never have another Bullet, I would turn down the offer. I would still keep the Bullet because that's how attached I am to that car. That's how much I love that car. I mean, it's also very early production. I have VIN number 12. So it's it could maybe be a collectible. Not like I care because I'm not ever going to sell it, but it's just, I ordered it from the factory. I actually had someone who was able to photograph it for me going down the line. I wasn't able to publicly ever share any of that stuff, sadly, because Ford didn't want me to, but which is strange because now there's been other people that have shown their Bullets going down the production line and stuff. So I don't know. But anyway, I have pictures of literally the car like being born. And so I just have this like very tight bond to that car. Like I said, I'll never sell it. But the Mach 1 is sweet. I'm excited to review on. But for me, it is a keeper forever. But Vishal is asking, would you add the C8 to your garage if you have the chance? It is a tempting car, but I think for me, it still has, those supercar proportions mean you have to kind of worry about the length of it a little bit. You have to worry about it being so low and all that kind of stuff. I kind of like the F-Type a little bit better because you're up a little bit higher and it's a little bit more compact. And for a weekend car like the C8 would be, I would rather have a full-blown dedicated convertible, and I know they offer the C8 in that, but I would rather just have a smaller convertible because I have my large Bullet already. So the next vehicle, if it's not going to be an F-Type, it'd be something like a Miata or something smaller because I do miss the BRZ that I had, and that's smaller, dimension, for cornering and stuff. It's just a little bit more pure than the Bullet is. And so if I'm going to get a third car, it's going to be something on the smaller side for sure. But the C8's a fantastic car, and I don't blame anyone for buying one. It is still, the hype is totally worth it. 100%. You cannot go wrong buying a C8. They are just phenomenal. But yeah, so we have Fastline says, if you had to get a truck, what kind would it be? Well, now thanks to the Ram, that question is much easier to answer. The Ram T-Rex all day long, 100%. Even if they come out with a Raptor with a GT500 motor, I'd still rather have the Ram just because that Hellcat supercharger just is so loud and it's just such a cool combo. I love it the way it looks. I think it looks a lot better than the Raptor in my opinion. Ram T-Rex all day long. Damien says he misses the BRZ sometimes. The whole, hey, what's up, guys? Super Expand here. Insert BRZ revving to red line on the highway. Yeah, those were the good old days. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, I love the Bullet, but I do miss that BRZ. If I could go back in time, I would try and find a way to keep that BRZ and just have that be my weekend car. The money just, it was tough back then. I wasn't able to afford keeping it, but if I could go back and find a way, I would love to have kept that car. All right, so we have it's DJ Vice 87 says, what do you think a new Mustang GT gen will release? When? So the new gen that was leaked out is going to be a 2023 model year vehicle coming in 2022. So basically around the same time as the new STI is hitting the streets, we should be seeing a new gen Mustang at that point, at least if they keep the same timeline that was leaked out previously. So that's when we should have that coming. But yeah, we have about 5 more minutes here until we're at the 2-hour mark. That's probably when I'll end this here so everyone can get on with their evenings here. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Damien says, would you ever buy a Legacy GT Spec B again? I would love to have my old Spec B back as well. That's another car that I do miss a lot because I spent 5 years with that thing. I put somewhere around, I think it was about 75,000 miles or so on that car. Actually maybe closer to 80,000 miles almost. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, so the owner that owns it now, I do know who owns it, and she's taken really good care of it, and I'm able to follow it on Instagram, and so that always is nice to see a picture of that pop up. But she did like a bigger turbo on it now, and a bunch of other mods and stuff. So I don't know if I'd want to buy that one back again unless I was able to kind of go back to stock, because I love the way it was stock. But that would be kind of cool to do a follow-up video, even if I didn't buy it, just to kind of like check it out. But it's actually, I think, in Florida now, so it's a little bit of a ways away, but that would be kind of cool to do a reunion video with that someday. But Colby asks if I'm missing the Mini. I do miss that car. Was a lot of fun, but I don't miss it leaving me stranded. That's for sure. But Brandon, thank you so much for your super chat again. He says, Matt, I can't imagine how much motivation your channel requires working at your own pace. Thanks for answering all my random questions. Absolutely. Thank you for all the super chats. Yeah, it's I don't really mind, like having my own pace and stuff, because I do stay pretty motivated just because I have deadlines and I need to get a video out every Wednesday, and I need to do the weekly updates every Friday by 3:00. And so those deadlines kind of keep me motivated, and it's really nice not having a boss and, kind of having the freedom to do whatever I want. So I'm very appreciative of that, having that opportunity. But there are some times where it's just, especially whenever I work really hard on a video and then no one watches it, there's some times like that where it's like, oh man, this is tough. And then there's other times where I post a video, all of you guys love it, it does great. And, that kind of reaffirms, that gives me the motivation. Then I see comments like I got earlier from some of you guys, that's how you were able to find the car that you bought through the video, or that's how you learned how to drive manual. And those types of comments, really keep me motivated. Every time one of you guys sends me a message or something saying that you bought your new car and the review helped, honestly, those comments are what keep me going the most, because that's why I did this. I think if everyone actually had a car that they enjoyed and a car that they drove every day and it put a smile on their face and it made them a little bit happier, even in these depressing times we're in right now, I think that would make everyone just a little bit happier and make the world a slightly happier place. And if I can help at all, help you to be a little bit happier by helping you find a fun car, then that makes me feel really good. And that's all the motivation I need. But Flo is asking, would you swap a GTI Club Sport for an RS3? 100%, just for the engine and exhaust note alone. Those things are so sweet. It's like a mini V10 at the RS3. I did that quick drive video on one, but I've never reviewed one fully. And man, I'd love to review one of those, because those things are so sweet. 100% do that swap if you can. All right. We have Jigga Jenks says that new Shelby GT Speedster looks great, doesn't it? I don't know if I saw the Shelby GT Speedster. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if you could maybe send me over a message or something, I'd like to check it out. I can always Google it whenever I get off of here, but I have not seen that. Maybe it just came out recently. I don't know. I haven't been on Twitter in a couple of hours. All right, we have Jason says, still working on subtitles, Matt. It's slow, but they're coming. I appreciate that. Jason's been doing a lot of the subtitles for some of the most watched reviews that I've posted over the past few years. And I think it really helps, especially some of you who just want to watch without sound, or, it makes it easier for YouTube to also translate it to other languages. So it's able to broaden the horizons of the video and help other people to, learn from them and watch them and enjoy them. So I really appreciate you doing that, Jason. I know it's a big time commitment, and so totally unnecessary, but I really, really appreciate it. So thanks for continuing to do that. All right, we have maybe time for one more question. Mark Kim here says, hey, Matt, have you thought of reviewing vintage cars like 67 Mustang, 1970s Porsche 911 RS, so I actually did do a 67 or 68 Mustang. You can go watch that. Was about maybe 4 years ago at this point. I did that. And I did do the Mopar stuff. I did a 68 Super or 69 Super B 6-pack and, the 1970 Challenger. I did a bunch of classics over the winter and stuff. So if you kind of scroll back in my car review playlist, you'll see some of those. Now the vintage Porsches I have not done. I would love to do an old 70s 911. That would be amazing. And I'd love to do more vintage cars in the future for sure. That all just comes down to I'm at the mercy of what people offer me. If, someone within driving distance offers me, something cool that's old, I would love to jump on it, once we're out of COVID and we don't have to worry about, germs and stuff as much. But yeah, I would love to do some more vintage cars. It's just a matter of waiting for people to offer them. And as of right now, there aren't too many that I have offered to me that I can think of off the top of my head. So hopefully I'll be able to do more in the future, though, because they're a ton of fun for sure. But yeah, so I think we'll end it there. Thank you all for hanging out and watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the live stream. Thank you especially to everyone who I was very generous with the super chats. That's always appreciated. But it's always just great hanging out and talking cars with you guys. This is so fun to get your feedback in real time and to, kind of answer your questions in real time and stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoy these as much as I do. And we'll continue to do them once a month. I've been able to kind of get into a habit here of doing it once a month. And I think that's a pretty good, time gap. So hopefully we'll do another one here in early October. So be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, yeah, stay tuned for, I'm going to have the C8 reviews coming next week. My follow-up video on the C8 that I had this past week. I got the CT5V in the driveway. Be doing a review on that here in a couple of weeks. I'm going to have all kinds of cool stuff coming down the road this fall. All kinds of stuff. I'm going to have a GT500 press car here. All kinds of good stuff. So definitely make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for all that kind of stuff coming here this fall. It's going to be an exciting fall with lots of cool cars still to come. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching this live stream. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your week. Take care.